Hey everybody, it's Professor Hernandez. I'm excited to bring you the first podcast of the series, hopefully many more to come. It's been a process. I got my tech guy, Zeke, right behind the scenes. He's got a little bit of a case of the sniffles, but it's hopefully going to be all good. So we were talking about the podcast and setting up a podcast itself and how complicated it is, and I didn't think it was going to be so complicated. So something that Zeke was letting me know that when you start recording and you start recording your audio, people clap so you can sync the stuff up. And I never made the connection that in the movies when they use those little clankers, what do you call those, Zeke? Like ploppers? I don't know, whatever it is. Well, they use those things, they go action. That's because they're using that to sync up the audio and the video. And I had no idea until I started recording this. So that's a little fun fact for the day here, in case you guys don't learn anything else from me today. At least you learn something about recording and movie productions. So welcome, guys. Ask the Professor first episode. Very excited. I wanted to tell you all, first of all, because I decided to do this because I am a mental health therapist, as many of you know that follow me on social media and things like that. I'm a mental health therapist, and I'm also a professor of psychology. So every day I run into people, not only my students, my clients, people who don't have access to expressing themselves in a way that they feel understood. So obviously my clients, they're getting services, they have insurance, they can get mental health services. But I've had so many students, for example, come up to me after class and say, "Hey, Professor, I'm having such and such situation at home, and I just don't have insurance. I don't have enough money to pay for a therapist." So we sit there and we talk, and it's all good. But that got me thinking about how many people don't have access to somebody like that. So that's why I decided to do this whole podcast and channel thing with my Instagram, my Twitter, and whatever, just because I wanted to kind of give people the chance to have access to somebody directly, to a professional that would be able to answer those questions, to be able to be there for them and just give them some kind of professional advice, or maybe just an ear for them to listen, or somebody to listen to them and them feel understood. Because not only that's my job, but it's my passion. It's something that I've been doing for 10 years now, Zeke? So it's been a while, and even before I started studying psychology professionally, it was something that I was always interested in high school, and even before that, I've always just kind of have like this easy, or it was just very easy for me to pick up on people's emotions and just to understand where people were coming from. So I've, considered myself to be a pretty emotionally smart person ever since I can remember. So psychology to me was just the natural next step. And here we are today. Hopefully this will be very helpful for a lot of people. This is going to be a lot of user-driven or listener-driven or viewer-driven type of podcast, where I have a series of emails, Instagrams, Twitters, where you guys can send me questions directly, or you can send me information directly that you want. Maybe you want advice about something. Maybe your boyfriend broke up with you and you don't know how to cope, right? Or maybe you're feeling depressed, or you're feeling anxious, or you're having some issues that maybe you just don't know how to cope with, or maybe you just don't know how to deal with, specifically. You can always go ahead and reach out to me. So my Instagram, and we'll try to put a link, maybe something on the screen, is Ask the Prof. There'll be 2 F's at the end. That's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, basically every social media. And you can also email me questions at asktheprofessor.net. The website is asktheprofessor.net. We're still kind of working on building that website. It's been taking us a little bit longer than we would have wanted to, but I am not a website expert, and my IT guy over here, he's an app developer, so we're just kind of doing the best that we can with what we got, and we're just kind of learning as we get involved in this process. So bear with me for a little bit, guys, and then hopefully we'll get everything up and running. But those emails are ready to go. I've actually received a couple of questions already, and I'll be addressing them in this podcast. And I have made a couple of short videos on Instagram and Twitter and things like that, that hopefully have been able to answer some of those questions. And I'll reiterate here is questions at asktheprofessor.net, Instagram, Twitter, every other social media, Facebook, Ask the Prof with 2 F's at the end. Okay, and you'll see my picture that looks just like that up there. I don't know if you can show that. It looks just like that. That's the website and everything like that. So I'm excited, guys. I know we tried to set this up for a while. If you follow me on social media, you know that we've been trying to do this for a hot minute now, probably a couple of weeks longer than we wish we could have gotten up and coming. But, it's tough because I do work, full-time as a mental health therapist. Like I said, I do teach almost full-time now. I think I have 3 classes that I've taught this past semester, and I got 3 more coming up. And on top of that, I'm also doing my PhD in clinical psychology. So I am also a student. That's something that I believe strongly in, that you never stop learning. And, well, here I am. So I definitely have pretty much all my time booked up, and when I'm not working or I'm teaching or I'm studying, I'm either spending time with my fiance or my brother or trying to do this podcast now, and just trying to do something to help the community and help people who don't have access to these type of resources. So again, guys, welcome. This is very exciting for me. I've never done anything like this before. But one thing I do know about myself is that I love talking. And if you guys could see Zeke's face behind the scenes, he's smiling over there because I talk all the time. And before this came along, I would just talk his little ears off. And he is not very happy about that sometimes because I talk too much. But I think this is a good outlet. This is also a good form of self-care for me, and that's something that we were talking about actually on Instagram a couple days ago. We were talking about self-care and how it's so important for us to do something to get us out of the usual routine, right? We usually go to work, we come home, we take care of the kids if you have kids, whatever it is that you do every single day is it repeats, and a lot of times we don't take care of ourselves, and that's something that we were talking about. So this is kind of like my self-care area here. This is gonna be a little bit of therapeutic situation for me as well, and at the same time, if I can help somebody doing this, that's the dream, right? That's the only thing that I could ask for, is that I'm able to help somebody while I'm also trying to help myself, because like I said, I like talking, and I'm passionate about this topics and field and the situations that are coming up with my clients. It's something that is very interesting to me, and it's something that I enjoy very much. So this is my self-care. This is going to be something that hopefully maybe once a week, maybe twice a week, depending. There's no really set schedule of podcasts that I'm trying to come up with. It's just kind of as they come. I try to keep it at a minimum once a week, just because there is a lot of interest and there's a lot of need that I'm seeing out here, and the questions are actually coming in pretty good. So I think the more questions I get, the more interest that starts coming up. Then obviously it's going to be more frequent, and we're going to have more things to talk about, and we're going to be able to reach more people. So that's really the goal here, is to be able to get to everybody. So a little bit more on self-care that we were talking about previously. A lot of times people think that self-care is going on fancy vacations or going into, getting expensive massages or whatever it might be. That's not necessarily the case, right? I mean, this is something that you could do. You could talk to somebody. I mean, obviously, this is something that I've invested in because I wanted to do it. But it doesn't have to be something like this. You can always just go to a park, right? You could sit outside. You could talk to a friend. You could just, I've had people that use video games as self-care, right? And that's all good and well. That all works. As long as it works for you and you feel better when you're doing it, is all self-care. So I think that's something that we can all get into the habit of doing a little bit more. There's a show that I watched, Parks and Recreation. A lot of people are probably fans of it, have heard of it at least. And some of the characters in that show, they have this day called Treat Yourself, right? It's a Treat Yourself Day. So that day, they just throw all care to the wind and they just go out and they treat themselves. And that's a number one form of self-care for those characters in that show. And in their case, treating themselves means going into all these expensive and luxurious days and buying kinds of, Gucci and whatever it is. But one of the episodes is very interesting because one of the characters, he gets invited into the day, right? Ben Wyatt, for those of you that watch the show. And he's kind of like a nerdy type of guy. He likes comics. He likes all these different things. And he went out to treat themselves day, and he didn't buy anything. All he bought was like socks or something. And they understood that maybe this is not the way that he likes to treat himself. So they asked him, you know what? If you could blow big money on one thing, what would it be? And next thing you know, it cuts to the scene, and he's coming out of some custom store dressed up in like a full Batman outfit. And he's like, you know what? No, this is stupid. I'm not buying this. He's like, no. Listen, if it makes you happy, then go ahead and treat yourself. And this guy starts crying. He's like, you know what? I do deserve this. So that is a way of treating yourselves. And I know it's kind of a silly metaphor, but I thought that was very interesting. They put that in the show because that is self-care. So something that we got to do, guys. We can do this every day, at least once a week. Try to do something that breaks your routine. Get a smoothie, right? Buy that expensive bottle of water, that Fiji instead of the Aquafina. Just does something different that breaks you out of that cycle of just routine all the time. Okay? That's just one of the things that I found interesting here. There was something else that I wanted to talk about that I read today that was very interesting. Okay. So there's a new study. And we're kind of jumping all over the place. I think we're still getting the hang of this. But things keep coming up into my mind, and I want to talk about everything all at once. But there is a new study that came out about a skull, or they're calling it, scientists are calling it Snapchat dysphoria. And Snapchat dysphoria is where people are going to the surgeon and they're trying to request surgeries to look like the filters on their Snapchats. And I'm sure many of us have done this before, where we put the filters on Snapchat, and obviously all of a sudden our skin looks very smooth, and our blemishes are gone, and our eyes look bigger, and our nose looks smaller, and we look great, right? But that's not really a way that you can really look all the time in real life, unless you're spending lots of money on makeup and you know how to do makeup, and maybe you're doing all these things. But there's people that are going to doctors now to try to get these surgeries to look like the way they do on their Snapchat pictures. And they're calling this Snapchat dysphoria. And I thought it was so interesting because that's something that we usually don't see in modern days. We have all other kinds of dysphoria. You have gender dysphoria, you have body dysmorphia, you have all these other types of things. But Snapchat dysphoria, I thought it was very interesting that this is something that's coming up nowadays. And it's just kind of like the way that society is going now. And I think we're going to be seeing more and more of that every day. I think we're going to be moving into that type of situation where people are just trying to kind of merge more with the machines, kind of merge more with the technology. And it's a very weird time that we're living in. But it's also very exciting times because we have a lot of technology and a lot of cool things that are happening. But I think, what do you think? See, we're going to keep this one short just to test out and see how it goes. And we can upload things on YouTube and stuff like that. And then if we're able to figure everything out, then we'll be uploading more lengthier types of podcasts. What I would like to do is do the long form podcast where we would kind of unwrap a whole idea and then just kind of walk through all the steps of it through the end of the podcast. Obviously include all these questions and things like that we're going to be addressing. But again, this will be just kind of like our tester episode for now. And we're going to figure out all the syncing with the audio and the video and things like that. And then hopefully we get that figured out very soon, and we will get the second episode up and running right away. It will be much longer, a little bit more structured because we're kind of all over the place today. But yeah, it's just trying to us getting our feet wet with this whole podcast culture and scenarios here. So again, just want to remind you guys, if you would like to send questions, you can send those in to questions@asktheprofessor.net. You can visit our website, it's asktheprofessor.net, and you can follow me on social media. All of them, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, are Ask the Prof with 2 F's at the end. And guys, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you have questions, send those in. And just remember, anything that you need to know, always ask the professor. Have a good one, guys.